Today I'll show you how you can sync your health metrics from Apple Health straight to your Notion. You'll be able to see all the data you have in your Apple Health directly in your Notion databases. If you're the one who loves to keep track and analyze your health metrics like body mass, sleep quality, or workouts, and you want to integrate them into your major Notion ecosystem, this solution is one of the best currently out there. So how is it going to work? Let's say you have some health metrics that you want to track. If you have smart scales, it can be your body mass data. For example, it can also be your sleep quality data that you can track with devices like Apple Watch. For example, when you wake up, when you go to bed, your total sleep time, and things like that. You can also track your workouts. So in the end, all this data goes to Apple Health, and what we want is this Apple Health data to be stored and synced to our Notion database. And we want to do this every 24 hours so that at every point we end up with the most recent data. In the end, we will end up with some kind of a Notion table that has days as records and different metrics as page properties. For this demo, I'll use 3 metrics as an example: the body weight, total time asleep, and time wake up. Let's go. So what do you need to make it work? First of all, you'll need some data in your Apple Health for exporting. Next, you're gonna need a Health Auto Export app, which we'll be actually using for exporting the Apple Health data. Next, we're gonna need the Automate.io account with multi-step bots plus webhooks for processing this data. In the end, we'll only need one bot, so it's not as difficult as it may seem. And we'll also need the Notion database. We'll be storing the health metrics. As for the Notion setup, we'll first need to set up the table where we're going to be storing our data from Apple Health. This table will contain the days as records and health metrics as properties, so that each day has its own set of metrics recorded for this day. To actually process and send data from Apple Health, I use Health Auto Export mobile app. This app supports automatic and periodic syncs with API, so that's what makes it a perfect choice for our use case. In the end, you'll need to download this app and connect it to your Apple Health, and we'll be using this app to send data from Apple Health to Notion, as it's pretty easy to set up and use. In Automate.io, we're going to be accepting the data from Webhooks, so in the end you'll need to have a single bot that can receive webhook data, format this data, and update the Notion database. I think you can use Zapier for this purpose, but I'm used to doing the automations in Automate.io, so that's why I'm sticking to it. We start by creating a bot with the trigger of webhooks and incoming hook. So now we'll need to set up the actual webhook. We press Setup Webhook button, and now we need to use this webhook URL and set it up in our Auto Health Export mobile app. So after we copied the webhook URL, we need to go to our Health Auto Export app, and we need to go to Automations section and API Export option. Here we will need to paste the webhook URL in the configuration. So simply copy the webhook address from Automate.io and put it there. Enable the automatic syncing. Export format should be JSON. the period should be today, and aggregation days. Since we want to make a sync on a daily basis, this is the type of configuration that would match our use case. And next we want to select categories for exporting, and since for this demo we're using the body weight and sleep data, we select sleep analysis and weight and body mass categories. You can also include workouts in this integration later on. So after you set everything up, you can test the connection. So we press I'm done in automate.io window, and we can press test connection in API Health Export app, and now we can see that the data from Health Export app was fetched to automate.io. We can see different metrics, time first asleep, time in bed, source, we can see the dates, and we can also see the body weight metrics down below. If everything looks good, if all the data is here, we can press looks good, and now we can work with this data within automate.io interface to format it and put it in our Notion. The next step in the automation is to update our Notion database with the data we have from the webhook. For this we'll need to select an action in the app Notion and update database action. For this demo we will assume that the Notion records for days, they already exist, so we just need to update them with proper data. We don't need to create new records. But if we were to create new records based on the data, it would be possible, although it might not be the best solution, simply because if we create a record every time the bot is triggered, then we might end up with multiple records for the same day, simply because the data is synced asynchronously and can lead to a duplication of records. Updating is much more flexible. Also, when you keep track of other things in your daily calendar, maybe tasks or different habit tracker, things like that. So I would recommend having a different automation that would create daily records and use this bot simply to update them. So we'll need to choose the database in our action, the daily tracker. So the next important step is to figure out which record to update, right? So we need to update the right record. So there needs to be an extra step before this one, and we'll need to figure out which records to update. So for this we will use the search function, and we will search item by property. So what we need to do is we need to find what's the record that is today, and only then update this record. So in order to figure out what's the day which has the today's date, we need to add extra step to get the date for the current day. This can be used by the timer action, get current date time. We will get only the date, and this step will just give us the current date, which we'll use to search the right item in our database. We select our database and we put this current date as the filter parameter. So if the date of the Notion record matches the current date, matches today, then we will update it, which is what we want. So after we located the record with the current date, we need to use the item ID to update it, right? And the first thing we will update is the body weight. So we'll need in all this webhook data, we'll need to locate the data that corresponds to the body weight and use this property in our update database Notion action. So this property is called data metrics last data last quantity. So this will give us the latest value of your body weight recorded, and we will just use it to put it in our Notion. With this setup we can test it. So we can turn on the bots, and within the API export app we can simply open it on the API export page, and it will send another webhook. Right, and we take a look at our Notion database, and the body weight was synced successfully. If we take a look at our bot activity, we can see that it first received the data, then it got the current date for searching the right Notion record, then it found the right Notion record with the date and updated it with our weight data. So this is how you set up the webhook integration from Apple Health to Notion. Another health metric that we want to sync is our total sleep time, and in order to sync it to Notion we first need to find out what this metric is in our webhook data. So this metric is called data metrics first data last asleep, and we simply need to do the same thing as with body weight, drag and drop it to our update database item in Notion action, and it will sync the data from the webhook to Notion. We can test it out. Again, to test it out you simply need to go to your Health Export mobile app and open it. Right now it works like that. If it doesn't work, you just need to press test connection button and it will send the test webhook for this integration. So now it's updating the database item, and yeah, we currently can see that both body weight and total time asleep was synced to our Notion daily tracker. And if you also want to keep track of the time you go to bed, fall asleep or wake up, it's also possible to do, although it will require some data processing and data formatting extra steps, because all the times from Apple Health of these metrics, they are recorded in date and time format. So if we want to store them as the number like this, as the number with decimal points, we'll need to process it and format it in a certain way. Storing them as number has multiple benefits. One of the main ones is that you can plot these numbers on the chart and to see like the dynamics of how it changes over time. If you have it stored just as a date and time, you cannot do it at the moment. So if you want to do this, we will set it up in Automated.io. For this one, we will need to set up the formatting. We will be using awake time, right? The time we woke up as our last metric. So we will first format it in the proper way. For this, we will use the formatter action, format date option, and we're going to use the data from our webhook that corresponds to that. And this data is called data metrics, first data, last sleep, end. So this is when you woke up, basically. And first we want to format it in the desired format. We will use the hours formatting option from Automated.io to get the number of hours in this date. Then we're going to get the number of minutes from this date. So we will use again the custom value and format ID in minutes. For extra processing of minutes, we will use the math action to multiply the minutes by this magic number. And why are we doing it? Because for example, if you woke up at 7:30 a.m., then the number of minutes will be 30. So what we need to do is we want to first divide it by 100, so it's less than 1, so it's not the whole hour, because the single digits will be used for the whole hours. And then we want to multiply it by 1.67 so that it's within the range of 0 to 100, because all the minutes go from 0 to 60, but this way it will transform nicely to 0 to 100 formatting. And after that, we will simply add the number of hours to the number of minutes, and we get this sum of numbers, and this sum of numbers will be our time that we woke up. So what we need to do is we need to put it in our Notion update database item action. We can save it and test it to see how it looks. And now we can see that our time we woke up was added to our Notion records in the number format. It's not the date and the time format. So what this number basically means is that today we woke up at around 7:25 a.m. And this we can use this further to measure the average time you wake up and perform different calculations on this number. That's it. With this bot enabled, all your data will be synced to Notion from your Apple Health automatically every 24 hours and will be stored in the Notion database like this. The one last thing we have to do is to add extra step into this process, which is related to iOS system. Due to its restrictions, it cannot export and sync data on the background automatically when the phone is locked. So in order for the API Health Export app to do this, your phone needs to be unlocked, or you need to be simply inside the Health Export app. So what we'll do is we'll use the Apple Shortcuts automation to open our Health Export app every day at certain time in order to make sure that the sync happens as it should. So in order to do this, we need to go to our Shortcuts app automation section and create new personal automation. The trigger will be the time of day, and you can simply use any time of day you want. Let's say we want 11:30 a.m. and trigger it daily. So the action it will run is it will use scripting and open app, and the app is the auto export app. Right, ask before running, we need to disable this so it runs automatically on the background without our permission. So with this automation, we will sync our data from Apple Health through Health Export app every day to Notion without any limitations. Within this setup, if you have another automation that creates Notion records for days every night, then all these days records will be populated with health metrics data automatically. So if we were to have August the 1st date, tomorrow it would be populated with the new data from Apple Health automatically. With this system in place, you can keep track of your Apple Health data in your Notion database, which will be updated automatically every 24 hours. If you found it useful, subscribe to my channel for more Notion and productivity videos. Drop me a message in comments or connect with me on Twitter or Instagram. Let me know what are the other things you're interested in watching videos about. Thank you and take care.